37th parallel on America's haunted highway, it's Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange.
All right. Hey. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pixelated Paranormal. This is episode 348. I am Sean, and I think I'm just about finally over whatever the second round of crud is that I got. With me, as always, is Preston. Preston, how are you, buddy?
What's up, all you cool ghosts and goblins, you crocodines and crocodingos, and skeletors and skelets, witchers and witches, and whatever else you want to be. My voice is not as sexy as it was last time, but you know, I'm feeling better. So
good, buddy. Good. Yeah, Preston and I both have been down and out with the nasty jam again, and that's why we're a day late and $1 short on this episode. But anyway, we should have recorded last night. But Preston, you went to a fun little concert. Tell the boys and ghouls what you did last night.
Jason and I went to go see Bob Dylan. This has been my 4th time seeing Bob Dylan. This has been Jason's 17th time seeing Bob Dylan. He like every time Bob Dylan comes to town, he goes. But you know, it was a bittersweet concert because about halfway through, like the middle of the set, all of Bob Dylan's songs got extremely depressing. And I got to thinking that the last concert, because growing up, Dad always took me and Jason to concerts. So we've seen Aerosmith together countless times. We've seen the Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, Paul McCartney, U2. We saw, Dad and I saw Jimmy Page, and so Plant and Page when they did their little album together, which is basically Led Zeppelin, up in Kansas City. Dad took me to Stone Temple Pilots, and Cheap Trick was the opener. So I've seen countless bands with Dad, and the last concert that we went to just so happened to be when Bob Dylan was in town in Wichita in 2005, 2006, awesome, with Willie Nelson as the opener. So it was kind of a bittersweet moment. Like, I may or may not have got emotional because the music that Bob Dylan was playing was basically making me want to pull out a gun and shoot my brains out because it was so sad. And then I got to thinking about, like, fuck, you know who'd be enjoying this concert and this fucking nasty beer next to me right now? Big John Wiener. So
Big John Wiener. Speaking of, you got a big old wiener hanging down just up to your left on screen there, folks.
It's fine. You know, we're not on a conference.
Mini in your collection.
Yeah, we're not on a conference call, so it's not like I have to be like, hold on, let me skirt.
Oh, that's too good, man. That's too good. Well, that's cool. Now, I didn't realize you saw Willie Nelson as well, because last night on Xbox, we were talking about that. I saw Willie open for Dave Matthews Band back in like 07 or 08. And I made the comment that guy looked like he had been hung up, wet, and dried out for a while.
Yeah.
And just kind of stood there and mumbled a little bit. And I mean, I realized the guy was very aged, but yeah. How was Willie Nelson when you saw him? About the same?
About the same. And so honestly, like, I got on like the Bob Dylan like official Facebook page last night because I wanted to see if like they had a set list up, and so you know they were announcing like new shows and stuff, and everybody on there is commenting like he fucking sucks. I mean, have you heard his voice lately? Like he should just retire. Like he's taking the fans' hard-earned money, motherfuckers. I've seen this guy, like, what did I say? And the earliest when I saw him was like 2000, 1999, somewhere around there. And you couldn't fucking understand him. That's like Bob Dylan's MO. Like, he gets out there and he mumbles. Like, that's just what he does. So he's not, you know, robbing the fans. If he has, he's been doing it for the last 30 years. Okay, he sounds the same as he did in 1999. So get the fuck over it. Go pay the money, watch the man play the piano, and be thankful that you're able to see a part of history. Because he ain't going to be around much longer. Ooh, you froze there for a second.
One news story with everybody. The myth of the boogeyman hiding under the bed came true for a Kansas family this week after a child's complaint led to a man's arrest. The Barton County Sheriff's Office said in a statement that it responded to reports of a disturbance at a house outside the city of Great Bend back on Monday. The unarmed babysitter told authorities that she was getting the kids ready for bed when one of them complained about a monster hiding under their bed. Her efforts to reassure them otherwise didn't go quite as planned. When the victim attempted to show the child there was nothing under the bed, she came face to face with a male suspect who was actually hiding under. An altercation ensued, and the babysitter and one child were knocked over during the struggle. The suspect is a 27-year-old man who once lived at the same residence, but who was under a protection from abuse order that required him to stay away from the property. NPR didn't publish the name of the suspect because of whether or not he will be charged in connection to the incident. Online court records cited that he posted bond 10 days prior after being charged with criminal threat, domestic battery, and violating a protection from abuse order from back in January and February. NPR reached out to the sheriff's office in Barton County for more information, and their statement said the suspect fled the scene before deputies arrived on Monday night, but was spotted in the area and after a short foot pursuit was taken into custody the next morning. The arrest on charges of aggravated kidnapping, aggravated burglary, aggravated battery, and child endangerment, felony obstruction of a law enforcement officer, and violation of protection from abuse order all is going to be coming down with the hammer on this guy. According to the statement, the man is being held in the county jail in lieu of a $500,000 bond. It's not clear whether or not he's retained a lawyer. Now, while fears of someone hiding under the bed aren't new, here's a couple other stories to share with you guys as well. Back in 2006, a former Washington, D.C. hospital valet was sentenced to more than 3 years in prison for stalking a hospital employee. Allegedly, he made copies of her house key, snuck a video camera into her dresser, and then hid under her bed for 2 nights before finally being discovered by the woman's boyfriend. Holy shit. In 2016, a Tennessee woman discovered her ex-boyfriend hiding under her bed while she was having a security system installed to protect herself against the same exact guy who was hiding under the bed. She already had filed a protective order and changed her locks multiple times. She ended up shooting this guy in the foot and then holding him at gunpoint until the police had arrived. Jesus. We haven't talked about this topic too much, but sometime we got to jump on here and talk about frogging. That's the act where people basically hide in your attic, or they hide in your garage, or sometimes, in fact, hide in like vacant rooms in your house. Have you heard of that shit before, Presto?
No.
Oh boy, we'll have to get into that sometime. Anyway, let's get after the main topic. Tonight, we're back with the first of our new series of episodes called Listener Topics of Terror, where you, the listener, and the viewer tell us a topic to talk about on an upcoming episode. Now, if you want to send us a topic to talk about, just send us an email to pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com and, tell us what you want us to talk about. You can also send us a DM, a PM, or even a voicemail to our Google number, which is 913-662-3144, and leave us a message there. Now, those things can't be more than, I think, 2 minutes long, so, leave us a little ditty there, and we'll play your message on the upcoming show and get your topic of terror on an upcoming episode. Anyway, tonight's topic of terror comes from Alberto. Preston, if you will, please share the email.
Hi, guys. I'm a follower of your podcast and wanted to share with you a few pics that I saw in a heavy trucking repair shop in Fort Lauderdale. I am a local Florida truck driver and saw this poster at the shop that I was dropping off my semi-truck for repairs. I was smiling weirdly because the Sloss Furnace Tragedies is my oddly favorite subject when it comes to the paranormal. Anyways, I figured I would take a few pics and send it to you. You never know when odd things happen, especially when you least expect it. Keep up the great work from Alberto Latino Mino Shakino from Miami. Please say my name in a
Christ.
horrible Spanish accent, please. LOL. I'm not Cuban or Mexican. My family is from Uruguay, next to Argentina. There you go. Alberto Latino, Miami Chiquito from Miami. It's for
Jesus
USA.
Christ.
I got you, dog. Don't even trip, essay.
You have a new accent, and it is
Yeah.
Cheech from Cheech and Chong.
Yeah.
Alberto Latino Miami Chico from Miami. Oh, good shit. Well, Alberto Latino Miami Chico from Miami, we got tonight's topic of terror from you, good sir. Our research will be coming from theghostpost.com, thehauntedstates.com, and modernstates.com. Now, he sent some pictures to us, Presto, and they're just from the interior of a truck stop, or I'm sorry, the repair shop he was talking about. And it's just a poster of the Sloss Furnace company there, which kind of sparked his memory of this incident here he's talking about. So I don't have the pictures to share, mainly because I didn't know if we should, since they're from the interior of another office. But yeah, I'll shoot those over to you, buddy, if you haven't seen those on the email.
I have not.
And again, apologies, Alberto. You sent us this email back in September of 24, and we're just now getting around to sharing it. But you, sir, will be the first of our listener topics of terror. Now, the Sloss Furnaces in Birmingham is where this story takes place. And of course, we're talking about the Sloss Furnace Tragedies. Sloss Furnaces in Birmingham, Alabama isn't your ordinary historical landmark. From its heyday as an industrial giant in the late 1800s to its current status as a museum and event venue, this site has a complex and haunting history. It's located in the heart of Birmingham, Alabama, earning the nickname the Pittsburgh of the South. The Sloss Furnaces have a rich history dating back to the late 19th century. This site, operational from the 1880s to 1971, played a pivotal role in shaping the city's identity and economic foundation, looming over the skyline with its massive smokestacks, relentless heat, and the clamor of iron workers toiling in grueling conditions. That's right, folks. This factory ran for nearly 100 years and was a keystone in not just Birmingham, Alabama, but probably in the creation in the Industrial Revolution in the U.S. The story of Sloss Furnaces begins in the post-Civil War era with a guy named Colonel James Withers Sloss. Back in the late 1880s, when Birmingham was emerging as a significant industrial center in the South, the city's access to all the raw materials necessary for iron making, coal, limestone, and iron ore, made it the ideal location for this type of industrial enterprise. Colonel James Withers Sloss was one of the founders of Birmingham, helping to promote the railroad development in Jones Valley, Alabama, and Jones Valley, Alabama, and the participating in the, Jesus, man, sorry, got a lot of mucus going down my throat. Take two, folks. Colonel James.
Drink your beer.
Withers.
You know what? You should tell the story in just a really bad Hispanic accent. I think that'll make everything better.
And participating in the Pratt, Coke, and Coal Company, one of the new city's first manufacturers. In 1880, he formed his own company, the Sloss Furnace Company, and began construction of Birmingham. Feet tall, 18 feet in diameter, man. Imagine the amount of heat alone just coming off those bad boys. Egods. James W. Sloss retired in 1886 and sold the company to a group of investors who recognized that in 1899, last time, holy crap. James W. Sloss retired in 1886 and sold the company to a group of inventors. Good God, dude. I even read this a couple times. James W. Sloss retired in 1886 and sold the company to a group of investors who reorganized and back in 1899 reopened the Sloss Sheffield Steel and Iron Company, even though it would never make steel. 8 steam-driven blowers were installed in 1902, which provided air for the combustion of the furnaces, and new boilers were installed in 1906 and 1914, which produced steam for the site. Then, from 1927 through World War II and into the 50s, Sloss Furnace continued to see countless technological upgrades until its closure in the 1970s. Anyway, enough with the boring stuff. During its operational period from the 1880s to 1971, Sloss Furnace became synonymous with Birmingham's identity and burgeoning industrial hub. The furnaces were critical in producing pig iron, which was a cornerstone for various industries, from railroads all the way to building construction. The production was an instrumental part of Birmingham's economic development, attracting workers and fostering the city's expansion. But unfortunately, in contrast to its contributions to various industries, the working conditions at Sloss furnaces were harsh, dangerous, and downright deadly. The combination of intense heat, long hours, and hazardous environments led to numerous accidents and fatalities over the years. But despite these challenges, the workers at Sloss played a crucial role in driving the industrialization of the South. So let's talk about some of these Sloss furnace labor challenges and tragedies, shall we, Presto? As I mentioned before, the working conditions during this era were notoriously harsh, with workers facing extreme conditions and long hours. The furnace temperatures could reach 150 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer, and workers had to endure long, grueling 12-shift plus hours without many breaks. The air quality was poor, filled with dust and fumes, creating a hazardous breathing environment as well. All these conditions were uncomfortable and dangerous and laid the groundwork for numerous accidents. The stories of workers, many of whom were formerly enslaved African Americans or poor immigrants with few other job options, are heart-wrenching. They were often hungry and exhausted, living in makeshift barracks inside the factory itself in order to take full advantage of their downtime, and they'd sleep in these barracks, only to be frequently woken up by their foreman to return to this arduous work. The lack of labor laws back in this time meant there was little to no protection for inhumane treatment and dangerous work conditions, especially from their overly demanding bosses. So you can get off work after a 12-hour shift, go to your barracks only to sleep for an hour or two, and then your boss man would say, hey, get your ass up. There's profits to make, and it's on your back. If a worker collapsed from exhaustion, there were no second chances. The furnace didn't stop, and neither did the relentless drive for profit. One of the most infamous and overly demanding slave drivers was none other than the infamous James Slag Wormwood, a foreman who reportedly pushed his workers beyond their limits. During the early 1900s, Slag Wormwood was a foreman overseeing the graveyard shift, a post known for being especially grueling. Unlike other supervisors, Wormwood allegedly took pride in his cruelty, forcing workers to take unnecessary risks, working them until they collapsed, and punishing anybody who dare protest. Under his rule alone, injuries skyrocketed, and it's said that nearly 50 men lost their lives under his command, suffering everything from falls into molten iron vats to horrific machinery accidents. Yet somehow Wormwood continued, unrelenting, until fate, or something more sinister, put an end to his reign of terror. One night in 1906, Wormwood was found at the bottom of a furnace. His body was broken and burned. Some say he slipped, but many others believed his workers had finally had enough of his bullshit. They banded together and pushed their sadistic boss into the flames. The official report ruled it to be an accident, but the rumors never stopped. This mysterious incident led to various theories, including one where the workers, tired of his torment, revolted against him and literally threw his ass off the highest point of the factory into a furnace. But even after Slag's death, many people believe he never truly left the factory. Workers and guards began to report a surge in unexplained incidents. Several workers would go on to describe encounters with the unknown, including an ominous presence described as a hateful and intimidating presence. This sensation was often accompanied by the sounds of disembodied voices, arguing them to work faster and push steel. In one encounter, a late-night watchman recounted being physically pushed from behind by an invisible entity, and then immediately hearing a voice telling him, "Go back to work." As the days and years went on after Slag's death, several Sloss Furnace employees would go on to report seeing a towering, shadowy figure stalking the catwalks, oftentimes accompanied by an overwhelming sense of dread. People who'd report these encounters said the entity would manifest as a hulking silhouette that appears to be in the periphery of their vision, only to vanish when they turn around to look directly at it. Other reports included the sounds of heavy metal chains rattling against the furnaces when no one is around, and sudden, inexplicable drops in temperature in some regions of the site. A few workers saw shadowy or glowing figures from the dark following them around the premise during their shifts. But what's fun here, or maybe frightening, is that even a decade after Sloss Furnace shut down, in 1983, a night watchman who was patrolling the site alone reported an inexplicable force shoving him toward the furnace, leaving unexplainable burn marks on his shirt and the skin underneath. The man quit his job immediately. Another visitor, exploring the lower levels, felt a sharp push between his shoulder blades, nearly sending him tumbling down a rusted staircase. He turned around expecting to see someone behind him, but the catwalk was empty. Some say Slag is still there enforcing his brutal work ethic in the afterlife, making sure no one slacks off in his domain. But maybe even more disturbing than the brutish phantom of Slag are the reports of sudden, blood-curdling screams that pierce the silence of the empty site. Many who have heard them describe the sound as agonized and panicked, as if somebody is reliving a horrible accident from long, long ago. These incidents have contributed to the furnace's reputation as one of the most haunted places in Alabama, attracting locals and ghost hunters eager to explore and document the unexplained happenings. Today, while the furnace is no longer producing iron, they still attract those who are interested in the paranormal. This transformation from an active industrial site to a center for historical and paranormal intrigue makes Sloss Furnaces a unique destination. But it's not just the rusty beams and history of Sloss Furnaces that draw visitors. It's the spine-tingling tales of ghostly encounters. Those who visit, whether out of historical interest or the quest for supernatural, often leave with stories that blur the line between reality and the otherworldly. One of the most frequent experiences visitors report is the sensation of being watched or followed. Many describe a palpable cold spots, even on hot Alabama afternoons, suggesting the presence of something or someone unseen. Various paranormal investigators have explored the Sloss Furnaces, armed with equipment to capture ghostly evidence, restful spirits of the decades gone by. But apparently the area outside Sloss Furnace is infamous for its misty, almost ethereal atmosphere, particularly at night when steam and fog begin to rise from the nearby river and settle over the rusty machinery. Jesus, that's just, you can picture that, man, like a movie, right?
Let's go.
It's within this mist that visitors claim to have seen shadowy figures emerging and lingering just long enough for their presences to be noticed right before fading into nothingness. These apparitions have been described as men in old-fashioned work clothes, with their faces obscured, but their pain unmistakable, of that of former doomed furnace workers. Another chilling account comes from a photographer who visited the site to capture its industrial beauty. As he adjusted his camera, he says he saw a man standing in the distance staring back at him. So the photographer waved, assuming it was just another visitor, but the figure staring back didn't move. When he locked down to check his camera settings and then glanced back up, the man had simply vanished. Reviewing his photos later, he was stunned to find that in one shot, a faint silhouette of a worker could be seen standing near the furnace where nobody had been. The Sloss Fright Furnace was a popular attraction that capitalized on these ghost stories for many years. That's right, folks. People even went as far as setting up a haunted house during Halloween at the Sloss Furnace. It features actors and special effects that brought the legends of the furnace to life, including the story of Slag himself. The haunted house was then closed sadly back in 2022 after a 22-year-long run. Someone made the decision by the board overseeing the Sloss Furnace National Historical Mark to shut it down. The board, affiliated with the city of Birmingham, felt that the Fright Furnace's elaborate setup was a bit too much for day-to-day workings of the site, because during the holiday events, you still had school tours and regular operations, which were all getting overshadowed by the extravagant Halloween haunted house. So the organizers of the Fright Furnace were told they'd have to make the event considerably shorter if they wanted to keep it going, cutting it down from about 3 weeks to just under 1 week. Running the show for just a few days didn't make sense financially, so they had to shut it down. The closure came to a surprise to many fans of the event, which had become a staple of the Halloween season in Birmingham. Today, the Sloss Furnaces differ considerably from their bustling industrial past. No longer an attractive iron-producing blast furnace, the site has now been transformed into a museum and a culture hub, continuing to play a significant, albeit different role in the Birmingham community. As a museum, the Sloss Furnace offers a glimpse into the industrial history of the early 20th century. The city has meticulously preserved the site, allowing visitors to walk through the same spaces where workers once toiled. Now silent, the furnaces, the pipes, and machinery all tell a story of an era that shaped Birmingham into the city it is today. You can explore at your own pace or take guided tours to learn more about the history and the stories behind the historic landmark. Beyond its role as a museum, the Sloss Furnaces serve as an event venue as well. The site hosts various events throughout the year, from concerts to weddings and corporate gatherings. Sloss is also home to a metal arts program where artists and students can learn the craft of iron casting and metalwork. In the early 20th century, the Sloss Furnace went under several upgrades to keep up with technological advancements. These included transitioning from the original blast furnaces to more efficient iron-producing methods. But as new methods of iron production emerged and demand for iron waned, the importance of the Sloss Furnace diminished. Eventually, in 1971, the site had shut down operations, ending the era of an industrial dominance in Birmingham. In the years that followed, the site faced the threat of demolition. However, recognizing the historical importance, efforts were made to preserve it, and we now had the museum that stands in its place today, potentially still haunted by no one other than Slag himself.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Cheers, Alberto. That's a pretty cool story, man. I had never heard of it. It makes me think of that great story about the, what was it, a maple syrup or a molasses flood? Did you ever hear that story?
No.
Oh,
Come on,
shit,
do
man.
it. Flood me with your maple syrup. Come on.
I don't have it. That's the problem. I don't have the information, but we'll have to tell that story another time. I think it was a molasses flood of 1919. I think it was in Boston. Yeah, hold on. Why don't I just kind of wing it, right? We got a little time left. The molasses flood of 1919, also known as the Great Molasses Flood, was a disaster that occurred on Wednesday, January 15th, 1919, in the North End neighborhood of Boston, Massachusetts. A large storage tank filled with 2.3 million U.S. gallons of molasses, weighing approximately 13,000 short tons, burst, and the result was a wave of molasses that rushed through the streets at an estimated 35 miles an hour, killing 21 people and injuring 150. Holy shit. The event entered local folklore, and residents reported for decades after that the area still smelled of molasses on hot summer days. Molasses can be fermented to produce ethanol, the active ingredient in alcoholic beverages and a key component in munitions. The disaster occurred at the Purity Distilling Company facility at the Commercial Square. A considerable amount of molasses had been stored there by the company which used the Harborside Commercial Street tank to offload molasses from ships and store it later for transfer by pipeline to the Purity Ethanol plant situated between Willow Street and Evertease Way in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The molasses tank stood 50 feet tall and nearly 90 feet in diameter and contained as much as 2.3 million U.S. gallons. On January 15, 1919, temperatures in Boston had risen over 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 degrees Celsius, climbing rapidly from the frigid temperatures of the preceding days. The previous day, a ship had delivered a fresh load of molasses, which had been warmed to decrease the viscosity for transfer. Now, possibly due to the thermal expansion of older, colder molasses already inside the tank burst open and collapsed at approximately 12:30 p.m. Witnesses reported that they felt the ground shake and heard a roar as it collapsed, a longer rumble similar to the passing of an elevator train. Others reported a tremendous crashing, a deep growling, and a thunderclap-like bang, and the sound of machine guns as rivets shot out of the tank. Holy shit, dude. The density of molasses is about 1.4 metric tons per cubic meter. That's 12 pounds per U.S. gallon. 40% more dense than water. This resulted in the molasses having a great deal of potential energy. The collapse translated this energy into a wave of molasses 25 feet at its peak, moving 35 miles an hour.
I guess the old adverb of slow asses molasses didn't count that day.
Yeah, holy shit, man.
Wow.
The wave was of sufficient force to drive steel panels of the burst tank against the girders of adjacent Boston Elevated Railway's Atlantic Avenue structure and tip a streetcar momentarily off the L's tracks. Stephen Puello describes how nearby buildings were swept off their foundations and crushed. Several blocks were flooded to the depth of 2 to 3 feet of molasses. Puello quotes in the Boston Post, "Molasses, waist deep, covered the streets and swirled and bubbled so many flies on sticky fly paper. The more they struggled, the deeper the mess was ensnared. Human beings, men and women, suffered likewise." Jesus Christ. The Boston Globe reported that people were picked up by a rushing air and hurled many feet. With his sisters from Michelangelo School, was picked up by the wave and carried, tumbling in its crests, almost as if though he were surfing. Then he grounded, and the molasses rolled him like a pebble as the wave diminished. He heard his mother call his name and couldn't answer. His throat was so clogged and smothered in the goo. He passed out and then opened his eyes to find 3 of his 4 sisters staring at him. Oh, Jesus Christ, man. Cleanup crews used salt water from fire boats to wash away the molasses in the sand to absorb it, and the harbor was brown with molasses until the following summer. The cleanup in the immediate area took weeks, and several hundred people contributed to the effort, and it took longer to clean the rest of Great Boston and its suburbs. Rescue workers, cleanup crews, and sightseers had tracked molasses to the streets as it spread to subway platforms, to the seats inside trains, and also streetcars. They also had to pay telephone. It spread to pay telephone handsets, into homes, and countless other places. It was reported that everything in Bostonian was touched by the sticky goo. Fuck's sake, that's crap. Insane. Yeah, I'm glad we shared that, man. Yeah, it all just happened because I guess they poured in too warm of molasses into too cold of molasses, and it caused some kind of chemical reaction. But there you go. Yeah, a fun little adject story into our main topic. But fuck yeah, man. I think that's a pretty fun story.
It's like a molasses tornado, you know? Shit.
Fuck yeah, yeah. I'd heard tales of this, but never read it. So that was kind of fun, just off the cuff. But there you go, Alberto. You know, show up for the Sloss Furnace and stick around for the molasses flood of Boston. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank first of all, Alberto, thanks a lot, buddy, for not only sending in the story, but for listening for so long. Like you said earlier, he's a truck driver, and he's been listening for quite a while, dude. So, I'm going to raise this glass and say cheers to you, pal, and thanks for supporting us for so long.
Yeah,
That's
thanks.
pretty badass.
Thanks for sticking with us, my man.
Mm-hmm.
And, stay safe on those roadways, brother.
Yeah, as you're traveling down the old paranormal highways, huh?
Yeah.
If you guys want to send in a topic, because this is a lot of fun, shoot us an email, pixelatedparanormal.com. Shoot us PMs, shoot us DMs, whatever. And you definitely can send us a voicemail. Let me bring that back up here real quick. 913-662-3144. And we'll start doing these listener tales of terror. We'll do another one for next episode, probably take a break for episode 350, and then get back to it and see what all we have in the emails there. So,
yeah.
If you are on the socials, please give us a follow on Instagram as well. We are PXL Paranormal. And on Facebook, we are the Pixelated Paranormal Podcast. Preston, what you got for me, pal?
When we ain't moving the needle on the social, on the platforms.
Okay.
We're still at like 351, 352 on Facebook. We're still at like 51 on Rumble. So look, if you're watching the live stream, like, subscribe, share with all your friends. If you accidentally come across, you know what? Even if you're a D&D nerd and you're watching us on Mondays nights, okay? You know what? D&D on Monday with us, and then stick around Saturday for the weird shit. If you're into the weird shit, I don't know, give us a listen on Monday. You might find that you're a closeted nerd and you actually like D&D. You never know. We are the gift that keeps on giving is what I'm trying to say. Okay? And then look, if you need a beard, if you want a beard, maybe you decided that you want to grow the Abraham Lincoln, and get rid of the mustache, and you really got to jazz this shit up underneath. Go over to Big Dob's Beard Balm. Use promo code PXLPARA for 20% off your order. And pick yourself up some scents like Bay Rum, Fresh, Citrus, Mint, Classic, and Sweet Tobacco, and my new favorite, Spartan. Use promo code PXLPARA for 20% off your order. Get it all. Get it at Dobbs.
Fuck yeah. And a quick shout out here to our buddy Tractor Life. Thanks for watching, pal. He joined us for this episode. We appreciate you, buddy. If you're in the Wichita area, stop by and see our dear friend Leslie and the rest of the gang over at CD Trade Post, Pawnee and Seneca. If you're looking for a sweet treat, go get a killer scone from paranormal.cafe. And while you're there, grab yourself a coffee. Also, I want to give a little shout out to a really awesome cinnamon roll company here in town called Criminal Rolls. Shayla and I have gotten a couple of those over the last few weeks, and they're fucking outstanding. So jump on, Facebook or wherever you're at. Look up Criminal Rolls in Wichita. Okay, I'm going to raise this barrel-aged porter, and I'm going to say, first of all, cheers to you, Alberto. Please be safe out there, buddy. We appreciate you. And then cheers to the weird shit in the world and those of us that love to talk about it.
And stay spooky and stay on the paranormal highway.
The cast at Pixelated Paranormal would like to thank you for listening to this week's episode. Pixelated Paranormal is here to tell you tales of the fantastical, the strange, the unknown. Tales that will move you a little further down the paranormal highway. If you'd like to share your own listener story, we would love to hear it. Email us at pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. Again, that's pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. We'd really love to hear from you. Again, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the